Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. I'm quite excited today with the topic that we're going to have. It's a serious topic, but we think we're going to share some very valuable information. So if you're finding us for the first time, please subscribe to our channel and share with other people. And if you are one of our followers, thank you for following, and please like, share, and comment as most people will do. So today I've got Phumelele. Phumelele will introduce herself. Phumelele and I come from afar. She used to be my elder. Do I call you an elder? At high school, she was my schoolmate.
But me whatever you want to put me.
Yeah,
I was a big sister.
You're a big sister, and you definitely are a big sister. So Phumelele has got a few things that she would like to share with us. And today we are going to be talking about retrenchment. And yeah, it's a very serious topic, but it's a topic that we can plan for and just find out how we can deal with it if we ever find ourselves in that space. Phumelele, good to have you.
Thank you, Mpumi, for having me.
So please introduce yourself.
You want me to introduce myself? All right. I'm a financial advisor. That is what I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm also an author. I've penned 2 books. So some people know me from, especially the second book, From Debt to Riches, because that is now an SA bestseller. We're approaching 30,000 copies in sales. I'm also a radio contributor, and now and again, I'm asked by a number of radio stations to give my opinion on issues money. And maybe last but not least, I also, prior to COVID-19, we were regularly invited by companies to conduct talks and workshops on issues of money. So I think in a nutshell, that is who Phumelele is.
Wow, thanks, Phumelele. And I have to say, and I've said this to you, I wish you could have written the book when I started working, because From Debt to Riches is a very good book, and mainly for people that are starting out, new graduates that are starting out. If they can get hold of that copy, I think it's one book that will really definitely change your life. But even if you are working and you're finding yourself in some bad situations, it's one book to help, and just for you to get some knowledge around money and how you can make some different decisions around money. So I've got a story around money, but this is not the topic for today.
Okay.
Yeah.
We all have, we are not the only one. We all have a story about money.
Exactly.
Especially post this pandemic, we all have a story. I wish I had the time to actually write about our money stories post the pandemic. But as you say, story for another day.
It is a story for another day. And maybe we can keep having these conversations, because there's a lot that needs to be shared. And as you know, I like really having these conversations because somebody takes something out of them. And I also learn in the process, which is a good thing. So Phumelele, retrenchment, define it for us. What happens? What are we talking about?
It's when in the midst of your career, you are suddenly, your career is suddenly disrupted because you are informed that for one reason or another, your job is coming to an end. So that is what retrenchment is. It often comes at times most unexpected to most people, so that is what retrenchment is, the end of your job for whatever reason by your employer.
Okay. So this is when you're being told that you are being made redundant for whatever reason. And basically, that's the end of that. And you need to either go find something else or decide what you want to do with your life.
Yes, but that said, there are also instances where retrenchment is voluntary.
Okay.
So, for instance, companies will say we need to get rid of 20% of the workforce. They would encourage those who feel that they can do without their jobs to come forward and offer themselves for retrenchment. So it could then be voluntary, but in most instances, I mean, even in that instance where you ask to put yourself forward, because I've had the opportunity of being invited by companies that are retrenching, by employees in companies that are retrenching. There are instances where the company will say we need to get rid of maybe 20% of the whole staff complement, and they will then ask people to come forward to take severance packages in a voluntary manner. Mm-hmm. And I've had instances of being asked to guide, employees in those instances. I do find that even those that come forward and offer themselves up for retrenchment, it is not an easy decision. It's still a very difficult decision to basically say, I'm coming forward. But oftentimes people come forward because there are sweeteners that are being, put forward to say, if you accept voluntary retrenchment, we will at least give you 2 weeks pay for every year. And then you find that normally people who have been with the company longer, or people who are close to retirement, they will then need somebody who will weigh for them and work out for them what it means financially. What are the pros and cons, and what if they do not take this voluntary retrenchment? So yes, retrenchment can be voluntary, but in most instances it's involuntary, and it's painful. So most of us would rather we go through our lives without having to face retrenchment.
Yeah. So if it's voluntary, what could be the reasons for somebody to decide I'm going to put my hand up?
There are instances where someone might already have been thinking about, I want to resign, but maybe they are too scared to resign. They might look at the whole thing and say, I've been with this company for 20 years. So if I'm giving 2 weeks pay for every year in service, that could end up being, a couple of millions. So that might become so attractive for them that they decide it's best for me to take this voluntary package. Or they could even be close to retirement age, or they could be between 55 years and 60 or thereabout. Because remember, in terms of the Pension Funds Act, when you are 55, you do qualify for early retirement. And these are the things that I'll be talking to them about, to say, financially, this is what it means if you take this voluntary package. And because you are 55 years and older, you can actually begin to receive a monthly pension from this voluntary package plus your pension, which means that you'll end up with a higher monthly pension than you would have had you not taken this voluntary retrenchment. And they might look at the whole thing and decide, what, maybe the kids are out of school, they are working. This could maybe be the thing that they need to go out there. And, at 55, you can still do something. I know people who have taken these packages and they are now receiving monthly income guaranteed for the rest of their life in a form of a monthly pension. And one of them, as I'm speaking to you, is busy with her master's degree, as an example. So that could just be, she always wanted to do a master's degree, but between work and other responsibilities, she could not really do it. So that voluntary retrenchment enabled her to have the money and the peace of mind, knowing that she would have X amount for the rest of her life to go and do her master's. And 2 years later, she knows she's going to be marketable and doing what she has always wanted to do.
Yeah, I think usually when the word retrenchment is mentioned, there's always the fear and the pain, and we're always just scared because there's that sense of I'm not going to have a job anymore. But I like what you are sharing about there could also be an opportunity. So there could also be a positive opportunity that can come out of it, because now you can have the ability to explore other things that you might have wanted to explore, because there's this element of money that you're also going to be getting out. So it's not sometimes always doom and gloom, but for majority of people, it can be.
It depends on your age, Mpumi, and how long you have been with that company. And generally speaking, if you have been with the company for a long period of time, it means that you've accumulated quite a bit in your pension, and that 2 weeks of pay per year of service can be a substantial amount. So that is why, if you're older, that could actually be a blessing in disguise. But if you've just been with the company for a few years, you still have young children, school-going children, you still have a home loan, a bond, and a lot of responsibilities, because the younger we are, it also means that our children are younger and they are 100% dependent on us. But as we grow older, hopefully our children are also older, and in some instances they could be employed and financially independent. You don't even need to be worried about school fees or varsity fees or anything like that. So every circumstance, every person is different. And it of course comes around with change, because you need to change, which is a bit unsettling, and some of us just fear change. We like things the way they are. So it's also how we made up and all of that. But there could be opportunities in retrenchment, and somebody else might have to point out those opportunities to you if you're feeling, I can't breathe. This is the end of life. Oftentimes it's not. Oftentimes it's not. It's just the fear that makes you believe this is the end of the world. Some of the most beautiful and empowering moments and growth in our lives happen because of such difficult circumstances that we suddenly find ourselves in.
Yeah, no, that's very true. So maybe let's get into it. The minute you hear that you might be retrenched, what are the things that you need to consider?
A few years ago, for me, I faced a similar situation. It was not retrenchment, it was a resignation. And I was going to start a job. Financially, it's the same thing, because you are used to a certain level of income every month guaranteed in your bank account, same day, every month. Then suddenly, boom, everything stops. So one thing that I learned is the game changes. You're so used as an employee with a fixed income that you go to the bank, you ask for an overdraft, they give it to you. You ask for a credit card, sometimes don't even ask for it. It just comes in your post box, and suddenly things change when you are now self-employed or you have faced retrenchment. They know that income has dried up. And let me tell you one thing, it's a rude awakening. You are not going to get money thrown at you as we are used to while we're still employed. So one thing that I will say is get the money out. And before maybe we get deep into this, I want to say this, Mpumi, we're having a conversation. This is not financial advice.
Yeah.
But these are guidelines. I would rather anyone listening to this take this as a guideline. The money will dry up. So get whatever money you can while you still have that monthly income coming in. For people who own homes, remember a home loan is the cheapest form of debt. So if you own a home and you are hearing rumors that retrenchments will be coming, the first thing I will do is I will get a re-advance loan from my home loan or a further bond, depending on my circumstances. And those who own cars, they might want to do the same thing because a car loan is the second cheapest form of debt. So get the money out because you're not going to get, chances are you will not get any money from the banks for the foreseeable future. The other thing is, yes, as South Africans, we shy away from budgeting, but this is your time to sit down and draft your budget as best as you can. Note where every cent of your money goes. And unfortunately, the bigger that paycheck is, the less you know where the money goes because there tends to be a bit of wastage as well. But this is a time that you must get to intimately understand how you're spending your money. The reason for this budget review, Mpumi, is to identify the needs and the wants in your monthly expenses so that you begin to say, what am I going to do with these wants? We'll get to the needs later, but you need to look at those wants and say, how much are these wants costing me? You know, should I rather be using the money that I'm spending monthly on all these nice to haves to clear some of the debt that I have? Because unfortunately, again, the bigger the salary, the bigger the level of debt. So these are the things that you need to be doing because you want to get to a budget position where you are right now while you have a monthly income. You want to move from that budget, which is not going to be sustainable when you've lost your job. You want to work on a budget, post-retrenchment budget. And hopefully that post-retrenchment budget will show expenses that are much smaller, expenses that you can manage for at least 6 to 12 months, even if you had no income. So that's the reason why you need to look at your budget and really go through it with a fine-tooth comb. You also need, if you have debt, there are things called retrenchment protectors. Oftentimes, people have these retrenchment protectors, but they are not even aware of. So this is the time to phone your creditors and ask if you have retrenchment protectors or not. And if you do not have them, I'll say to you, ask for them. Especially if, it's still in the rumors, the retrenchment has not been publicized or announced anyway. Get those retrenchment protectors if you can. Sometimes creditors might become suspicious if you didn't have retrenchment protectors as to why you're looking for them now. But what is the worst that they can say? No. And in some instances, you might be lucky and still be able to put in that retrenchment protector. And there are also, certain things that none of us can do without. These are things like food. All of us need food. You can't do without food. But there are those which are not so obvious that we cannot do without. And for me, as a financial advisor, one thing that you cannot do without is life cover. And the reason why I say is you cannot do without that is because we're all going to die, Phume, at some point. We just don't know when. And especially with COVID-19, unfortunately, people have died at a young, tender age. So if you have life cover, your life cover might have been too high in terms of monthly payments towards that life cover because we're employed and you could afford it. So you might find that it's becoming expensive. Don't cancel it because you don't know when you're going to pass on, but rather shop around for reasonable life cover, so that should you pass on while you are unemployed, at least your children will have something. You won't just leave them with absolutely nothing. And one thing that you can cut out of your life cover is disability cover, because in terms of insurance, disability basically means, you fall ill or you get injured. The impact of that illness or injury is that you will no longer be able to earn the income that you have been earning. So if you are taking a retrenchment package, or you are being retrenched, chances are, if you get disabled, they will not pay for that disability cover anyhow. So you might as well, reduce your monthly expenses by canceling the disability cover, but not the death portion. So this could be the opportunity to also review that life cover, instead of just, putting yourself in a position where one day you just keep cutting one thing after the other. Unfortunately, insurance is one of those first things that people go for when they are facing difficult times. They would cancel their insurances, even car insurances. And I don't have to tell you how risky that could be. And yes, if you are a mom, you are a dad, you are a parent, you still have children that you're paying school fees for, university fees for, that is important. You need to look and see how you can at least pay for the current, school calendar year, if possible, for the following school calendar year, and also ask some tough questions. Because if your kids are in a private school and if the school fees are very expensive, you really need to say, should we continue with this school or not? I know sometimes it's hard, because if your child is in grade 10, grade 11, they are just about to finish. And it's not going to be easy to change schools. But if your kids are in other grades, there could still be room for you to look for a more affordable school. So these are just some of the things that I will say you need to start thinking about the moment you hear of a retrenchment that could be taking place.
You spoke about retrenchment. What did you protectors? So what would that look like?
Okay, when you have you've bought certain items on debt, a car, furniture, personal loans, other forms of loans, they often come with retrenchment protectors. What that is if you were to get retrenched and you still have this debt, there is a small portion, a retrenchment protector that you're paying for as part of your monthly payments, which will then cover you for differs from case to case. Some instances, they will pay your monthly installment for 6 months, in some instances for 12 months, and in instances where we're just about to finish paying off that debt, they could end up paying off the debt in full. So these are the retrenchment protectors. And some insurance companies as well will offer a retrenchment protector. Maybe with your life cover, there will be a protector that says, if you were to face a retrenchment, we will cover your monthly premiums for at least 6 months or for up to 12 months. But if you get a job before the 6 months or the 12 months, then the protector falls away. They always come with terms and conditions. So you need to ask and make sure that you understand the terms of your conditions. And in natural fact, Phume, that's a very good question, because remember that if your retrenchment is voluntary, some of these retrenchment protectors might not apply. So
Oh.
you need to you need to tread carefully and weigh the pros and cons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes,
I think that's very good information for people to know. But in general, what is the impact of retrenchment in people's lives? Just on a general note.
You know, it's a difficult time for me. Everyone that I've worked with, you know, and I've had the opportunity to advise companies and individuals facing retrenchment across the country. It's a difficult time. It's a painful time. It's a time of uncertainty, especially in an economic environment like this. You know, in the past, for me, when people were retrenched, they will know that they will stay at home for a couple of months and they will get another job. But it is no longer the case. Chances are now, if you get retrenched, you might never get another job, or it might take you a very long time to get another job. One of the key things that tends to happen with our practice is when people get retrenched, not only do we assist them at that time when they are getting retrenched, but when they get a job, they also come back to us to say, I now have a job, help me to rebuild my financial life. Oftentimes it takes 2 years and even longer before they come back to say, I now have a job. So because of the environment that we're in economically, but it also depends on your age, for me. You know, as you would know, companies will prefer to hire younger people than older people. So if you get retrenched late in your life, it might be even more difficult to get a job, you know. But generally, it's a difficult time because the truth is, your monthly income has suddenly dried up, but your monthly expenses are there. And, you know, the higher the paycheck was, the higher those monthly expenses would have been as well. So, and also I find that people with younger children or people who are the only breadwinners in their families, and we also know that in our country, because of the high rates of unemployment, when someone is employed, they are not just looking after themselves and their immediate families. Oftentimes, we're looking after mom and dad, if they are still alive. We're looking after grandmom. We're looking after cousins or another sibling or their children because the sibling got retrenched themselves. So one salary check supports a lot of people. And if that person also loses a job, it can be very difficult even on that person. So it's a difficult time. It causes havoc. Literally, it can cause havoc in people's lives. And that said, for me, I also want to say that my role, for instance, as a financial advisor, when my customers go through a retrenchment, is to, as best as I can, assist them from a financial perspective to respond better to that retrenchment, because also how we respond will inform how we're going to feel in the long run. You know, I'm a storyteller, Mpumi. I don't know if you know this about me. I love telling stories, so you must stop me if I'm telling too many stories. But I just want to share with you. I just want to share with you one story of you know, a varsity friend of mine who went through a tough time and lost his job. And at the time, you know, his wife was just starting out in business. And they then contacted me about a month ago to say, finally, I've got a job. This is now over 2 years later. But, you know, Phumelele, please, we must meet because I want to make sure that I make the most of this money as I get back to the world of work. And without me knowing a lot of background, I then said to him, I want to know, is there any debt that you need to deal with? And he then shares with me to say, you know what, it was the toughest decision for my wife and I, but we decided to sell our home. And they had a beautiful home in Estate. And she says, we had to sell that home. We're no longer in that home. With the pandemic, we've not been visiting each other. And he says, we moved in, we're renting as I speak, and our rent is less than a quarter of what our monthly bond repayment was. It was a tough decision, but with hindsight, he says, we are much better off, because as we are approaching you now to say, please help us to rebuild, at least we're not sitting with mountains of debt. So, so there's one thing that I would like to say to anyone who is facing retrenchment: get somebody to assist you to respond. Understand that this is a painful, stressful, difficult time, and it might not be easy to, respond appropriately. So get somebody who will guide you what to do, what not to do. Yes, the final decision lies with yourself, but perhaps when the person prompts you to say, maybe, sell the house or sell the car or take the kids to a less expensive school and all of that, those are difficult decisions, because it means that we are now changing the lifestyle that we are used to. But, if we do it in the long run, we will be better off.
No, I hear you. And I think that's very important. So as you say, you're a storyteller. What mistakes have you seen people do or people make after being retrenched?
The biggest mistake for me that I've seen is people do nothing. Okay. They do absolutely nothing. They pray and they hope that something good will come in a short space of time. And I pray for me. I pray. And I know prayer is important, especially when we're going through tough times and we cannot live without hope. But we must also be aware that when we're facing retrenchments, banks are counting down the time and the days. And if payments are not coming, they are going to follow certain sections of the National Credit Act, and they're going to foreclose on you. And before you know it, that house will be repossessed and that car could be repossessed. And I wish I could say that's the end of it. Unfortunately, it's not, because when these, items are repossessed from you, they are then sold on auction. And that is the worst position that you want to find yourself in, because when stuff is sold on an auction, it is sold to the highest bidder. So if your car is worth $500,000, and if the highest bidder at an auction is putting up their hand for 50,000 and there's no counter offer, that's it. It's gone for 50,000, and you still are liable for whatever the outstanding balance on that car or home is. So as far as possible, please don't do nothing, do something. The other mistake for me, which people make, is, and that's why earlier on I put that disclaimer to say, please note that this is not financial advice, but these are guidelines. I have written a newsletter on what to do. But at the end of the day, there's just a newsletter to give you guidelines. And in that newsletter, I also said, pay off your debt. And especially your unsecured short-term, which carries the highest rate of interest. But
so what is unsecured? Sorry to cut you. What is unsecured debt? What does that? What's that?
Okay. This is debt that there is nothing for a bank to repossess. So in a personal loan, what can they repossess? With a credit card, revolving credit, all of these things, there is absolutely nothing for them to repossess. On the other hand, the opposite is secured loans, like your car loan. They will repossess your car. Your home loan, they could repossess your home. So an unsecured loan is there's no item linked. I'm choosing my words very carefully because I know some people call these things assets, but I chose not to call them assets. Discussion for another day. So these items are security over that loan because we're giving that loan to buy this asset. So there's a secured loan. So if there's no asset, specific asset linked to that loan, there is an unsecured loan. And those are expensive for me. You know, on personal loans, you're sitting above 25%, and that can be very expensive. So sometimes people read these newsletters and they apply. Yes, sometimes they can get it right, but this is what I want to point out. And I've seen this, you know, with some of my customers. They will then take the money, they will settle the credit card, they will close the car loan, pay off the car, and all of it. And because there was no proper advice and guidance and somebody looking at this holistically, guess what? In a few months' time, they are using that same credit card again. And they've not asked themselves the question, once I've paid all of these, settled all of these, if I have zero money after that, then what? How am I going to pay for water, electricity, food, and all of this? And this is what then gets people to go back into accumulating the very debt that they've just used their retrenchment packages to pay off. So yes, I'm not saying don't pay the debts, but you need to do a holistic overhaul of that budget so that you don't find yourself in a couple of months reusing the very same credit card that you have just paid off. So yes, it's good to pay off debt, but there are certain things that you also need to ask yourself before you pay off debt. And the most painful one, Bumi, that also comes with lack of knowledge of finances and taxes. I've seen people cashing their pensions and giving away thousands and sometimes millions to SARS because they didn't get advice. You know, so and one thing that you need to understand about how the tax tables work when it comes to cashing your retrenchment package is this: the higher the amount that you are going to be cashing, the higher the tax that you are going to be paying. So, you know, if for no other reason, seek advice from a financial advisor so that you avoid paying a lot of that money to SARS and banning that money, literally banning that money. And sometimes people forget to claim for UIF, Mbumi. You know, while you're employed, you are paying UIF. So this is your time to claim for UIF. Go and claim for UIF. So these are just some of the mistakes that people make. They forget to claim for UIF when they are retrenched.
Yeah. But that pension fund conversation of people taking out their pension money, what could be the opposite of that?
Well, there are a number of options that you have when it comes to your pension. And each case is different. You know, there's no one size fits all advice. So, but your options insofar as your package is concerned, your pension or provident fund package is concerned, are as follows. If you don't cash it, you can preserve it and preserve all of it, 100% of it. Or you can preserve a portion of it. So you might withdraw depending on your circumstances. And again, maybe this is something that I want to clarify. People think that they have $500,000 that they can withdraw tax-free. That is subject to a number of conditions. And one that I'm just going to mention here is if you've never exercised that withdrawal before. And you might have exercised that withdrawal before, but not all of it. So, so it's not 500,000 every time. It's 500,000 in a lifetime. So you could withdraw the tax-free portion, or you could withdraw the portion that you need and preserve some of it. For me, a combination is a better option, because that could enable you to, depending on your circumstances, maybe pay off that home loan, and then you know that if nothing else, at least I have a roof over my head, or settle those, high interest, unsecured, loans that are likely to eat up a lot of your monthly income when you get a monthly income in the future. So I would look holistically at somebody's budget, their family situation, their needs, and what it is that they can't do without. One of the things that I always ask people who are facing retrenchment is, look at your budget and let's do a post-retirement budget. How does it look like? And if you were earning, let's say, 50,000 net before retrenchment, hopefully after retrenchment, your expenditures are going to be there about 25, 20, or even less, but it can't remain the same. They can't remain the same.
Yeah,
So,
I like the point that you're making about having a holistic conversation, because sometimes you might not need to go pay all the debt if you are not going to have money to sustain yourself on a monthly basis.
Exactly.
Because then you can be able to still pay the bit of the debt and reduce some of the installments so that you're able to then have monthly living. That's my understanding of what you're saying.
Yes, Mpumi. In an ideal world, there will be enough money to pay off all your debts, and you still have enough money to sustain yourself for 6 to 12 months or even longer. But that's not always the case. And then this is where sometimes, I will say to my customers, you're in a difficult situation, but there are degrees to the difficulty. And sometimes I've said to my customers, what is the worst that will happen if you don't pay this personal loan? There's absolutely nothing that your creditors can do except blacklist you. But if you don't pay for a home loan, you could end up homeless. And sometimes I'll say, I know it's hard, but maybe let go of this car, sell it. And we know, cars depreciate in value. So when you sell that car, it does not always mean that you are going to be able to pay off the full outstanding balance, especially if you've just bought the car. You might find that whatever you'll make in the market when you sell that car will fetch less than what you need to clear that debt that's sitting as an outstanding balance on that car loan. And then you can taxi yourself around, taxify your Uber, or go back to the taxes. But maybe there's a better position to be in and not have a black listing against your credit record. Because then, again, this is what you need to consider. If you're going to be looking for a job in the future, there are certain jobs that you will not get if you have an impaired credit record. And that's why this needs to be a holistic decision. So, so these are some of the conversations that I would have with my customers. And sometimes some are lucky. They get rid of that car, they sell that home, and in a short space of time, they've got a job, and then they are rebuilding again. And they are doing things a little bit differently the second time around. Because one thing that I always like when just about every person says to me is retrenchment. If there's one thing that retrenchment taught them to do, was to really fully understand what a need is and what a want is, because we tend to elevate our wants into needs, and to really learn to live with as little as possible. And they are oftentimes stronger when they get another source of income, because they have learned to live with less.
Yeah. Wow. The whole conversation. I've always said, as I said earlier, I think there could be opportunities for somebody to start embracing what could be what it is that they would have wanted to do, and it doesn't become doom and gloom, and they are able to move themselves forward, even if they've gone through retrenchment. So what additional stuff would you like to share before we finish our conversation?
Not much, Phume, not much, except maybe to say, given the difficult nature of retrenchments and how they affect not just you, by the way, as a retrenched person, your partner gets affected, your children, people closest to you get affected, Phume. So given that and how difficult this could be, if I were ever to be retrenched, I will say, don't go it alone. Seek advice, get a financial advisor by your side, so that you have someone to talk to, you have someone to guide you, and don't go it alone, so that, you don't have to say, oh, I wish I had known that. For instance, you just said to me, you didn't know anything about retrenchment protectors. So, if you're hearing about retrenchment, these are some of the things that you need to know about and start investigating and maybe putting in place if you don't have. So, get somebody to assist you during this difficult journey, and hopefully you will make it on the other end better than you would have. And for me, Phume, as a financial advisor, what I always say to my customers is, this is what guides me when I'm working with somebody who is facing retrenchment. I'm trying to assist you not to pay a lot of tax unnecessarily. I'm trying to assist you to reduce your monthly expenses, so that whatever money you have at this point in time, it lasts you for as long as possible. Because, and then there are certain tools that I use to make sure that whatever money is available, I hide it from you. I put it where you can't access it. And I might say, based on your post-retrenchment budget, if that budget says you need 10,000 to live on, and then I pay you 10,000 per month from that investment account where I've hidden your money, then we know that if, for instance, you have 100,000 rands there and we're paying you 10,000 a month, you have the next 10 months not to worry about. So these are just some of the things that we do. But for me, you want to make sure that whatever money you have, it lasts you for as long as possible, so that you're not faced with financial distress very soon after that retrenchment. Yes.
I think that's very important, because it's got it can have it's an emotional time, whether you took voluntary retrenchment or not, because there are a lot of decisions that you need to make. And I think it can be very overwhelming for anybody who's going through it at that point in time. So there's a mental element that you also need support of, mentally and emotionally. You also need support. So I can imagine financial advisors become psychologists and everything else in one.
It's a very difficult one for me. And the reality is we're not trained to to be psychologist or to counsel you. I think that is where the difficulty is. And I see myself, and how inadequate I feel, because as a financial advisor, I'm good with money, I'm good with figures, and I'm going to work something out, and I'm going to say, this is the plan that will make sure that you have peace of mind for the next 16 months. But then there's this human psychological aspect that I don't know how to help you with, where now it is the acceptance stage to say, I no longer have that monthly income. For me as a financial advisor, I'm going to give you the figures. And, and it also depends on your makeup. There are those customers who say to me, you know what, I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. So please hide this money from me, give it to me, give me 10,000 every month. But not everyone is like that. Others really want all of their money now. And even though I know it's not in their best interests, all I can do is show you the figures, give you my recommendations, but ultimately it's up to you. And that's why sometimes in some instances, especially when, I'm sorry to digress, but because, I also help people to get out of debt. When I see that psychological blockage, which I'm not trained to deal with, but I can identify it, then I have somebody on the side. And then I say, will you please go and see this person? Because, this is the best plan, and this is the best plan for you. But I don't know how to convince you to do this, how to, because it's in your best interest, and it's in your best interest. But if you're not going to do it, I can't help you, So yes, there is a need for counseling. Sometimes, somebody will be able to, make you soothe you, and make you really feel it's not so bad to let go of that house after all, yeah.
Yeah, I think that emotional, because money has got a lot of emotions that comes with it. And that emotional element and mental element really is needed for support whilst going through this. Even if you're maybe excited that this is opening an opportunity to the next thing. But I think you really need people to help you. As you say, going at it by yourself is not really advisable.
And for me, for those people who are using their retrenchment packages to start businesses, I just want to caution that we all know the high failure rates of businesses in our country. So if you're doing that, again, this is where, from a finance perspective, I'll say, this could be your last money. So be very careful. Maybe put a peg and say, if I have R1 million, I'm going to put 300,000 in my business and no more. And if after that 300,000 is not working, I'm not dipping into the other 700,000, because I could really end up penniless. And also depending on your age and your skills levels and the chances of you being able to get another job and all of that, one has to be that strict. If you're intending to start your own business, my advice would be, please get yourself into those business supporting networks so that you get, I remember when I was starting out in business, I don't even remember what the name of that support network was, but we would meet about twice a month, and we'll all be sharing what challenges we are going through in our businesses. And, just listening to other people's challenges also, helps you to understand what you could be facing in the future and how they are dealing with those challenges. If you can get yourself into such a network so that you have people to listen to you and to guide you, that will really be, that could really assist you. And this is a difficult one, because we also know that, some businesses were started by people who used their very last cent. And oftentimes when you're using your very last cent, you are very careful and you work hard. And that is what oftentimes is required for businesses to succeed. And
Yeah.
this could just be a start of a business empire that will never have seen the light of day. But because you found yourself in this position, and there was no fallback position, it was either this or nothing else. And then that just gets you to be so creative, and you do whatever it takes. So, but get the network support behind you so that you have someone to listen to you, somebody who understands what you're going through. And
Yeah, I like that. So where do people find you on social media these days?
We on Facebook. I've got some young people who are putting us on Instagram and all of those people in Twitter. I don't know anything about that. So I'm going to give you, I want to give you I was going to give you my office number. I hope I can find the office number somewhere. While I'm still trying to find the office number, this is what I always say about the best way to contact us. Email is the best, Mpumi. And the reason for that, when we have load shedding, our office phones do not work because they are linked to our Wi-Fi. And then people get upset. We're trying to get hold of you. No one is answering. It's beyond our control. Hence, for me, an email is the best way to get hold of us. And our email address is info, which is info @Thuthuka, THUTHUKA hyphen as in a manner sign SA for South Africa.co.za. And then our office number is 011 568 2635. And our office
568
2635.
2635.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to also give
your social media handles for people to follow and check your things?
I think they must just try and find Thuthuka SA on Facebook. Okay. I'm a bit more active on Facebook than anywhere else.
Okay. You're showing off your age right now.
Yeah, hey, I'm proud of my age, Mpumi. And the office cell phone number is 068 195 40 28.
Okay. No, we will write out those details as part of the description, because we put a description, so we'll write out the number, so don't worry about that. But I want to say, so what is the one thing that you want somebody to take out of this conversation?
Don't be hard on yourself when you're facing retrenchment, or don't be hard on your loved ones. It's funny, but this is true. When we have money, do you know how nice it feels to have money? It makes us smile. And then they say money makes the world go round. And equally, when there's no money, it's very easy to be short-tempered and all of those things. So just be aware of the emotions that you're going through, and don't be hard on yourself and on your loved ones because you're going through retrenchment. Seek help, seek guidance so that you go through this difficult time as best you can.
Thank you. That was very encouraging. Thank you for that. So for anybody who's watching us, please continue to follow us, share, and comment. We really love to get your comment about these change conversations that we're having. Thank you, Phume, for being here. I really, really appreciate the time that you've taken.
Thank you so much, Phume, for having me. Thank you.